Finally, there's a third kind of anxiety or concern we experience. We've talked about godly concern and ungodly worry or anxiety, but in addition to these two, we can also experience what I like to call as habitual anxiety. It's similar to godly concern and ungodly worry because habitual anxiety is the experience of a negative feeling. But while it's similar to the negative feeling we get when something we value is threatened, habitual anxiety is precipitated more involuntarily by our bodies. Habitual anxiety is the recurring negative feelings and or the involuntary physical responses they produce precipitated by an experience that is reminiscent of a time when something we value was threatened. Habitual anxiety is the involuntary bodily response to being reminded of a time that we were particularly concerned or anxious. As embodied souls whose ability to function daily has been facilitated by the gift of habit, this is just another consequence of living in a fallen world, and really one that we should all expect. Our body reacts habitually and automatically to all sorts of different situations, right? This is why you're able to drive a car without thinking specifically about which pedal to push every time the speed changes. This is how you automatically slam on the brakes when you all of a sudden need to stop. This is why your need to go to the bathroom increases when you're near a safe or comfortable toilet. This is why your body goes through certain changes when you're sexually aroused. It's all habit. And it's connected between your brain and your body. But interestingly, your body doesn't simply react automatically in each of these different situations. It can also react automatically when you're simply reminded of those situations. And in the same way, your body often reacts with fear-like symptoms when it's in a situation that's just reminiscent of one that caused particularly notable fear in the past. This is why your palms get sweaty when you get into a car for the first time after you've previously been in an accident. This is why your heart starts racing when you enter a classroom as a parent, because it reminds you of the stress you experienced decades earlier as a student. And that racing of your heart, the sweating of your palms, it's not only the result of a chain reaction in your body and mind, but it can also set off a chain reaction, leading you into a place of physiological and, as a result, even mental anxiety, whether you realize what kicked off the chain reaction in the first place or not. And so this is the chain of events that is blown up and on steroids for anyone who has experienced trauma. Trauma can ingrain these responses into your mind and your body. This is why dealing with trauma is a whole other topic, right? One we could do a whole other seminar on. But categorically, I think of trauma responses as habitual anxiety in response to an excessively painful experience, right? Like a form of abuse or a particularly acute tragedy. And as embodied souls living in fallen bodies in the midst of a fallen world, we ought to expect these kind of complex and at times confusing complications in our emotional lives. But thankfully, Scripture gives us a category to think of these kinds of involuntary, physically and environmentally triggered experiences. These are all forms of suffering. And it's important for us to think of this kind of habitual anxiety as a form of suffering that countless people experience to varying different degrees. Again, it's just another way that we suffer from living as fallen people in a fallen world. It's just another shade of the multicolored trials we experience, as James puts it. And so, as we minister to and counsel those around us, we ought to always be aware of this kind of habitual anxiety. kind of habitual anxiety that people experience in addition to the godly concern and ungodly worry we've talked about. And to the extent that what people are experiencing is this unique form of suffering, they shouldn't be met with correction. It should be met with comfort.